Hey everyone, it's Carly and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all the books that I DNF'd in 2019. So if you guys didn't know, I loved DNFing this year. I finally learned to DNF and to not just hold on to the books because I think that I'm going to get through them just to have them onto my books that I read. But I found out that DNFing has really saved my ass this year, even though I did get into a really big book slump in the middle of the year. I definitely like DNFing. I DNF'd 23 books this year and I definitely continue DNFing because I definitely think it's the best thing to do. It makes you not be so slumpy. It saves you from reading a book that you know you're not going to like instead of just getting through it. And so that's what I did. So I'm going to list all the books off that I read that I DNF'd. I didn't give any of these ratings, at least for the most part. I didn't give any of them ratings unless I got through most of them enough to rate them, which I know for a fact is maybe one of them because I got 70% into it. So none of these are in order, so I'm just going to tell you guys all the books that I DNF'd this year. The first book that I DNF'd this year was Forbidden by Tabitha Suzama. This I read to 74%, but I still DNF'd it just because it took forever to get to the ending. I also DNF'd Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia. We already knew that I was probably going to be doing that because it took forever for me to try and read it, and it's just a big hunker of a book and I didn't care for it. Next book that I DNF'd was The Writing Date by Jasmine Gilroy. It was very bland, and I barely read past like the first couple pages because I was just bored. I literally DNF'd it on page 14. Next, I DNF'd We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I wrote DNF on page 6, really early to DNF, but nothing was making sense and too many characters. I could tell I wasn't going to like the writing, so I'm not going to waste my time. Same. Next, I sadly DNF'd Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven. I love Jennifer Niven, but I just didn't like this book. It just didn't flow right for me. I DNF'd at page 92. Next, I DNF'd The Right Swipe by Alicia Ra. And I was listening to this on audiobook, but I DNF'd it at chapter 7. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Next, I DNF'd The Outsiders by Essie Hinton. I was starting to hit a book slump while I was reading this, so that is also why I DNF'd it. I did like it, but I just couldn't get past the middle of the book. Next, I DNF'd Wet Moon Volume 3, which I just recently tried to read. It just made me very depressed and want to cry, and so I just didn't feel like getting through it. So I wrote DNF at page 267 because it's making me sad. I really dislike these characters and how they treat and talk about each other, and it's not putting me in a good mindset. I don't need that, so it's best for me to DNF this book and probably this series since I'm not enjoying it. As you guys know from my video I just uploaded about all the books that I read in 2019, I read the other two volumes this year, and they're okay. That was just more for the artwork style. That's why I liked it, but I'm just not continuing on the series. One of the first books that I DNF'd this year was You Don't Love Me Yet by Jonathan Lefman, and I don't think I wrote why I DNF'd it. I just didn't like it. The next book that I read, again, earlier in the year was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Cho, and I definitely just DNF'd this because I just wasn't into it. It was very boring, and I said I very bored so far, try not to DNF and give it a chance, and then yet I DNF'd it anyway. And I was at 4% I was very bored at, so. The next book that I DNF'd was Cut by Patricia McCormick. I heard about this book from my friend, and I decided to give it a try because he bought it from my thrift store. I got 10% and I DNF'd it. Next book that was another highly anticipated read for this year was What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli, and I DNF'd that. And I wish I liked it, but it was just very cringy. It was very YA, very teeny bopperish with trying to be hip and cool, and was just like, I'm not here for it. The next book I DNF'd was The Arrangement by Ashley Warlick. I DNF'd it at 4% because I was very bored and it already got to the point where it needed to be, and yet there was still a whole nother entire book to go. Next one I DNF'd was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Again, I just didn't care to read it. I wrote DNF at page 13. All I have to say is Alice on crack, ? I don't know what the hell this book was or what the author must have been on because this made 0 sense from the start. I DNF'd it at 0%, apparently. The next was another book that I was really excited to read because I got it for my birthday. It was Hunger by Roxane Gay. It just wasn't flowing right, and I was reading it on audio, and I said DNF at page 84. Now, this one, funny, yeah. I DNF'd Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I no longer support Rainbow Rowell. I said DNF page 18 due to problematic issues with the book. No longer be supporting Rainbow Rowell because there was a lot of issues. I will link up my vlog where I talk about it more in depth if I can find it. Next, I DNF'd The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I tried to read this book fucking twice and once by the end of the year, and I couldn't get through it. It was just very cringy, and I sadly didn't like listening to it on audiobook. I tried to read it twice. Maybe I'll have to pick up the physical book at some point. I first DNF'd it at page 130 due to a reading slump, and then I ended up DNFing it 23 days ago. So the next book I DNF'd was Dating You Hating You by Christina Lauren, and as you guys know, I'm trying to read all Christina Lauren books for 2020. I said DNF at chapter 14. Beyond bored, plot is lost, it is too much talk about work, and it's giving me a headache. I sat and listened to this bad boy on audiobook, and I was bored shitless. Next was Holly Banks Full of Angst by Julie Valerie. This is another recent read trying to read in December, and I wrote DNF at chapter 3. I cannot listen to 11 hours of this audiobook with how cringy this started off. I wanted so badly to like this, but if I continue, I'm going to slam myself into an ugly reading slump, and this book isn't worth that. Sorry. Drop the mic, says, damn. Another one was a NetGalley arc, and that is The Silence Between Us by Alice gurgles. So I wrote a lot for this one, so I'm not going to read it, but I'll link it down below if you want to read my review of my DNF'd it. I DNF'd it at 70%, so this is the one that I said I would actually give a rating to, and that I would give 2 stars to. I said I tried so hard to finish this book and power through, but my brain is turning to mush, trying to push my way through it. It's not even worth it anymore. There are so many things I did not like about this book. If I were to finish, I would have given it a 2 out of 5 stars. No point in finishing if I'm not having a good time or I know it's going to be only 2 stars. And then I went into my review for Neck Alley, so I'll leave it down below. Next one was also a Neck Alley, one that I DNF'd, and I said DNF at 16%. I am really sad to DNF this book. I really like the description of it because it sounded so good. Going into it, it was fine. I didn't mind it. Towards the 16% mark, things were very repetitive, slow, and already insta-lovey. I felt myself getting lost and drifting off into my own thoughts while trying to read because it wasn't holding my attention like I wanted. Sadly, this is going into my pile of DNF'd books of 2019. And then the last book that I DNF'd was Love at First Like by Hannah Orenstein. I DNF'd it at chapter 5. I tried listening to an audiobook and I knew it wasn't a good book because people that I trust gave it bad reviews, and so I was just like, just gonna cut it off. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of very negative, I'm sorry, but I kind of actually had fun filming this and to see my reviews, and hopefully come 2020 I'll actually give more updates on my DNFs, because I used to do those with my wrap-ups, but I definitely want to save all my DNFs to the end of the year instead of just talking about them. Unless it's like in a vlog, but like if it's for like a wrap-up video, I'm probably not going to talk about them. I'll probably just wait till like the end of the year for my DNFs. And yeah, I am definitely just going to have to keep my thoughts and opinions on Goodreads still, because that was fun. So if you guys enjoyed, if you did, give it a big like, subscribe down below to my family, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye guys.